Today we're going to build a frame to go around this piece of stained glass so we can hang it in our window and it'll look pretty. Let's get started. I wanted to do our frame in a Craftsman arts and crafts style. Because of that, we're going to use red oak. I had this piece of 1.5 inch partially planed red oak laying around in the shop. First, we're going to cut all the pieces to length. One of the edges was fairly straight, so I could use it against my fence to rip the other edge straight. After that's done, we've readjusted the fence and we're cutting all of the pieces to 3.5 inches wide. Now it's over to the planer where all 4 sides of every board gets planed. The 2 vertical pieces will get planed a few extra passes so they'll be a little thinner. And then back to the miter saw to trim them to the final length. Now a little bit of sanding. I've set up my stacked dado blade in my table saw so that I can run a groove down each side of all the pieces. This dado is slightly wider than the glass. Now on the side pieces, I can run the dado all the way to the ends. Because you'll never see it, the side pieces butt into the top and bottom piece. But on the top and bottom piece, I have to stop that dado before it gets to the end. I've marked the leading edge of my dado blade and the trailing edge, and I've also marked the point where I want the dado to stop on my board. Now if I turn the blade on, and I drop the board with the first mark even with the leading edge, push the board through, lifting it up, when the rear mark gets even with the trailing edge, I'll have a dado that doesn't go all the way to the end. And unfortunately, because of a camera malfunction, I don't have that footage. But let's move on to the pocket holes. We're drilling 2 per end on each of the side pieces, making sure to keep them far away from where the glass is going to be. And with the chamfering bit in our router, we're going to ease the edges of the boards. On the side pieces, we do just the long edges. The short edges will butt against the top and bottom. But on the top and bottom, we do all 4 edges. And here's what it looks like. You can also see the stop dado now. We're going to do a little pre-assembly now. We're only gluing the side pieces to the bottom piece. We don't want to put glue where the side pieces meet the top piece because we still have to take it off later to put the glass in. After everything's assembled, we're going to put a chamfer around the back edge of all the pieces. One of our pieces had some hidden wormholes that didn't become obvious until after it was planed. But don't fear, we have a solution. I collected the fine sawdust from my sander bag, and I've mixed it with some carpenter's glue, and we've made our own wood filler. And after sanding, you'll never know that the holes were there. Now to complete the arts and crafts look, we're going to add some fake walnut tenons on the front. To do this, I'm ripping a piece of walnut to 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch square. And over at the disc sander, we're giving the end a slightly rounded over look. We're doing this to both ends of our walnut blank. This allows us to get 2 fake tenons each time. And here's what I mean. Over at the bandsaw, we cut off one end and get 1 fake tenon. Then by flipping the piece around, we can cut off the other end and get the second tenon. We just repeat this until we have all 16 tenons. To ensure all of our tenons are spaced properly, I've made this little guide. I clamp it on, and then I glue the tenons on, being careful to line them up with the marks on the guide. After that, we unclamp it, take the guide away, and perfectly space tenons. Instead of hanging, this window is actually going to sit on some short stubby legs on top of a bay window shelf. there'll be another set at the top to space it down from the top of the bay window. I'm going to cut a notch in these pieces, but I want to make a rounded inside corner. This makes it less likely to split out on me. We use our drill press to get the rounded inside corner. Then our bandsaw cuts the long leg of the half lap. And finally, we finish the short cut up with our table saw. And this is what you've got. Very unlikely to split up the grain with the rounded inside corner. Over at the miter saw, we're going to clip the back corner of it just for looks. And then with the drill press again, we're going to pre-drill for some screws. And then with our chamfering bit, we'll put a chamfer on all the edges. Here's what it looks like. Now to install these bottom legs and top head spacers, we're just putting one screw in after pre-drilling, squaring it up, and then putting the second screw in. For a finish, we're using semi-gloss spray lacquer, and we're going to put a total of 3 coats, allowing each one to dry in between. Now it's time to put the glass in. I put a temporary cross piece on the back to hold it at the right width while I take off the top. This is why we didn't glue the top. Now we slide the glass down into the dados, being very careful not to slam it. Once we get it worked in the bottom dado, we can put the top back on. And then we take off our temporary spacer cleat. And here we see it installed in the bay window of my living room with the full noonday sun streaming in. As we zoom in, we can see the walnut tenons. We can also see the spacers that hold it down from the top of the bay window. Look at the beautiful colored glass. You can see the legs at the bottom as well. Here's one of those legs up close. And as we go up the side, if you look behind the top spacer, you can see an angle bracket that I've screwed in the top of the bay window. Well, I'm super pleased at how this turned out. I really like the colors, and I think it's going to make a good addition to our living room. I really like the arts and crafts look of the oak frame, and the walnut plugs really stand out against the light colored oak. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope if you haven't that you'll subscribe. Until next time, thanks for watching.